demanded that we should share. But these are thought processes. We now have something much more pressing on everybody, whether they hold a theological view as I do or a philosophic view as I do as well. They now are forced by the forces of circumstance. This is now a practical necessity, not something that comes from what we believe or what we think. It's something that comes from the necessities of life. And if you like to take a moment when you saw that, it was when the United States invaded Iran, in Iraq. When the United States hasn't done the other one yet, but I mean the fact is, then it was invading Iraq, and the British foolishly supported it. I was a member of Parliament at the time, and I, Conservative member of Parliament, and I voted against it, and I went on voting against it, and I'm pleased to say one is now shown to be right. But the fact of the matter is, it was the last attempt of the imperial solution, because it was the last time that someone really thought that if you took over a country, they'd all come waving and be happy about it, and then you would have solved the problem. And the difficulty we now have is it ain't like that any longer. And the problem of the United States is that it has become an imperial nation just at the point in which imperialism doesn't work. And that's extremely difficult, particularly for Republicans. They find it very hard to understand what that means. And so what we have now is a world where, for the first time, if you like, the best of man's thoughts, the best of man's scientific thoughts, of his theological thoughts, of his philosophic thoughts, and of his political thoughts come together with an absolute need to create answers which are in fact going to be able to be operated in a world in which we are dealing with a nation of the poverty and lack of ability, like South Sudan at one, and a sophisticated nation like the Swiss at the other. So it's in those circumstances that it seems to me that in the end you have to find an answer to our problems which is of the nature of the planet. In other words, all the things that we have at the moment are fixes. That's why we always say it's not either or, it's both and. That's because no one answer solves the problem. So we say we've got to have wind, and we've got to have tide, and we've got to have some fossil fuel, and we've got to have nuclear, and we've got to have all these things, and we've got to have them all because none of them on their own provide us with an answer. And then you've got to have energy reduction, and you've got to do it better, and you've not to wait so much on in the connection, all the things that we talk about. And of course, it seems to me that in the interim you've got to go down that route because that's the only route you think you've got ahead of you. But for me, the excitement of coming here, which has become more exciting as the day has gone on, the excitement of coming here is to be able to say very frankly to you, I am not scientist enough to say, particularly after that last question, which I thought was horrific. But I mean, the point is, I'm not scientist enough to be able to say this is absolutely right, but I am, I hope, sensible enough to recognise that somewhere down something like this we have to go. Because unless we find a mechanism whereby we can provide a way of solving the world's problems which is genuinely a global matter, then it seems to me that the political difficulties will not be overcome. And in a sense, what I'm saying to scientists is, scientists, and particularly engineers, but scientists in general, are very often so concerned about solving the problem and believe that they can conquer the difficulty, that they don't take seriously enough the political context in which that has to be done. And we all know that the big difficulty is trying to get a scientist to discuss, even discuss, the question of hydropower in this great country of Brazil. It just shows you what I mean. There are real issues about hydropower, but scientists, but certainly engineers, don't want to talk about this because they think everyone ought to understand that it really isn't as bad as all that, and this is how you're going to do it. Anyway, it's wonderful, and it's big, and it's going to spend a lot of money, and it's fantastic, and in the end it works, and didn't think it was going to work, it's going to work, and it's going to be very good. In the end, you need to have a sensitivity to the world round about, which is an essential part of the technological fix. I don't want to sound as if I've got a thing about it, but I go back to the thing that used to annoy President Bush, when he really sort of said, well, even if this is happening, then we'll find a technological way of overcoming it. That is, of course, a nonsense, because it suggests that there are simple technological answers to all questions. One of the things we have to learn is that not all questions have an answer. That's a very dangerous thing to say, but it's true. And then secondly, many of the answers that we present are actually worse than the disease, so you don't have necessarily an answer which is going to work. And my problem with President Bush is that I knew a number of answers that he would think would work, I would hate to have. I'm not sure I wanted to be in his world. And it seems to me that we therefore have a real role to insist that the way in which we approach these issues is precisely the way that we have just heard. It's a way which instinctively is seen as being in conformity with the way in which the world works. Now, this doesn't mean that you've got to believe in creation rather than accident. It doesn't mean you've got to take any particular view. But what it does mean is that you have to accept the most remarkable thing about the world, which is the interrelation between everything. And that's the one thing which you need to do if we're going to find an answer which enables us to reflect that in the interrelation between all people on Earth. And that's the message from the parliamentarians. They're not usually very good at giving deep messages, but that is the answer, the message of parliamentarians. I want it to be a message which scientists understand and give us an answer. And I end with just one sentence that this is not a circumstance in which people say, I don't like that, but I like this. In other words, one of the things that really worries me about all these discussions is that there's always a good reason for not doing anything. And my motto, since I was a small boy, was the motto of Teddy Lester. Teddy Lester was the hero of the school stories I read as a boy. And Teddy Lester had a motto, and it was, I'll chance a go at it. Always thought that's a good motto for life. And when I became a member of the House of Lords, I had to choose a motto for myself to go on my coat of arms. And I thought, I'll chance a go at it sounds a little bit. So I took the Latin form of it, which is the words from St. Matthew's Gospel, which are, duc in alto, launch out into the deep. If we don't launch out into the deep, we're not going to find a solution to the worst and most difficult problem that's faced mankind in history.